Welcome back to Vuln Vibes. Today we're doing a deep dive on CVE 2025-46728. It's hitting cpp-httplib, a pretty common C++ library.
Right, widely used. And this one's serious. It opens the door to denial of service.
And since you're all pros here, we'll skip the 101 stuff and get straight into the nitty-gritty, the actual exploit mechanics and impact.
Exactly. So the vulnerability is really about how cpp-httplib handles incoming request bodies.
Specifically when?
Specifically when you've got transfer encoding, chunked set, or alternatively, when there's just no content link header provided at all.
Okay, and what happens under those conditions? What's the actual flaw?
Well, the core problem is that the library, it basically fails to enforce the size limits you might have configured.
So limits are set, but ignored in these cases.
Precisely. Which, opens up the attack vector. A remote attacker can send a specially crafted chunked request.
Crafted how? What makes it malicious?
They send the chunk data, but, and this is the key part, they deliberately don't send the final mandatory zero-think chunk.
Ah, the one that signals I'm done sending data.
Spot on. Without that termination signal, the library's read content chunked function gets stuck.
Stuck how? Waiting.
Sort of. It keeps expecting more chunks, and because those size limits aren't being enforced in this state, it just continues allocating memory for each. Well, for basically nothing, waiting for a chunk that never properly arrives or terminates.
So, runaway memory allocation.
Exactly. It's described as uncontrolled memory allocation on the server. And as you expect, that leads straight to potential exhaustion of system memory.
Which means lights out for the server.
Pretty much. Full denial of service. The server crashes, or at the very least becomes completely unresponsive.
And that's bad enough, but what about shared environments? Microservices, containers?
Oh yeah, that's where it gets even messier. In multi-tenant setups, this isn't just a DOS on one application. It can cause system-wide resource exhaustion.
Meaning one vulnerable service could starve others sharing the same box.
Absolutely. It can cascade, impacting totally unrelated applications just because they share the underlying system resources. It's a significant blast radius concern.
Okay, crucial question. Which versions are vulnerable?
Everything up to and including version 0.20.0 of cpp-httplib.
And the fix?
There is a patched version available, 0.20.1. Upgrading is the immediate, most important action.
Right, patch. But let's say, for whatever reason, an immediate upgrade isn't feasible. Are there short-term workarounds?
Yes, thankfully. The standard recommendation here is putting a reverse proxy in front of the application using cpp-httplib. Think Nginx, HAProxy, something similar.
And configure the proxy to do what?
Configure it to enforce its own maximum request body size limits. The idea is the proxy inspects the incoming request first.
Ah, so it catches the overly large or unterminated request before it hits the vulnerable library.
Exactly. It acts as a filter, a first line of defense, dropping the malicious request at the edge.
Makes sense. But that's a band-aid, right? The underlying code is still vulnerable.
It is. The long-term solution is the code fix in 0.20.1. The patch ensures the library does enforce those size limits properly, even during the chunk transfer reading process.
How does the patched code handle it?
If, at any point, while parsing the chunks, the total size exceeds the configured limit, it just terminates the connection immediately, returns an error, closes the stream, whatever stops the memory allocation.
Okay, good. Catches it right in the act. So zooming out a bit, what are the bigger takeaways for us security folks?
Well, first, it's another reminder about input validation and resource management,
Yeah.
Even in seemingly simple, focused libraries, these things have to be tight.
No component is too small to cause big problems.
Definitely. Second, the attack vector itself exploiting chunked encoding without proper termination. It's not entirely novel. We've seen this pattern before. It tells us we need to really understand the nuances of protocols like HTTP.
And the proxy workaround.
That just hammers home the value of defense in depth, doesn't it? Layered security. The proxy acts as a compensating control when a component deeper in the stack has a flaw.
True. And finally,
the existence of a patch highlights yet again the critical need for timely patching. Proactive vulnerability management is key. Leaving this unpatched is just asking for trouble.
absolutely. So this look at CVE 2025-46728 really underscores that need for constant vigilance. It's worth thinking about how this type of resource exhaustion vulnerability fits into your own threat models.
Yeah, look at your dependencies. What other components, maybe even simple ones, could be susceptible to similar resource exhaustion attacks if input isn't handled perfectly?
A good question to take back and mull over. That's all the time we have for this deep dive.